went wrong with my tech today. So I've been sitting here while Dre has been on running around trying to make updates and some changes, and hopefully I got enough here that I should be okay getting started. So, but welcome. My name is Matt McHale, aka Matt GPT. I'm going to talk about all things AI on this segment today. I talk about some AI news, obviously some updates, different tools that are have come out, some cool, interesting tools I want to talk about, and one kind of relates to news, which was disturbing news of things that are going on in the world of business. And then I want to talk a little bit about the future of AI when it comes specifically to marketing, but really marketing and sales. There's a really good article by Andrew Chen. So, but let me jump into some news here. So the link up top will have most of my links. Not going to have all of them because again, my issues. So, but I'm going to talk through the links here, and the links to the tools are there as well. And there's also my StreamYard link. So if you wanted to follow along, so please feel free. But I've talked a lot about the AI influence on elections. All the elections are going on really all over the world right now. But obviously, I'm focused mostly on the U.S. And AI chatbot got questions about the 2024 election wrong 27% of the time, studies find. So this is going to be somewhat of a common theme on some of the things I'm sharing today, because when we look at no, thank you, Dormarie. Dormarie just sent me a message. I'm okay. I think I'm good now. So as long as everything sounds good, I think we're good to go. So, but this is a common theme as far as the chatbots getting things wrong, and that's the kind of the race to get as much data and get the data in there correctly. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the glue on cheese here in a moment on some of these, but I talk all the time about the problems we have with AI as far as the deep fakes, as far as video, as far as all these other things that are happening. But the other side of it is if you're trying to get your information from AI, about a quarter of the time it's going to be wrong information. So that's not always great. But let's be honest. Some of our news sources and other things that we get it from, I don't think they're right all the time too. So, so it's bad data in, bad data out, as they say. So, I wonder when it says it's wrong 27% of the time, is it wrong? Is it wrong because it's getting information that it's relying on as truthful, and it's really not. So, and I think that's where a lot of that lies, and that's where we're seeing a lot of these issues. So, Anthropic, who has the large language model Claude.ai, which I talk about a lot here. It's one of my favorite go-tos, especially if you're using it for marketing, if you're using it for being able to write copy and help update your website and things of that nature. They came out with a whole testing and mitigation of election-related risks. So they have a real good article that they have, or a blog post, or say, on their. That's right. I keep grabbing my mouse to move the page, and my mouse stopped working too, among everything else. So, but they had a whole breakdown of how they're kind of putting the data through and looking at the information that is there and trying to react as quickly as possible, because that is the other thing too of having data in there. If you're just looking to say, how do I change my car battery? Well, that, depending on the car, the make of the model of the car, that's not going to change that much, so that information can be there, can be reliable. As we go through and election data and all this things are going on, they have to react very quickly. So they talk about their planning, testing, reviewing the results of that. So they are being very conscientious of that and trying to make sure that they are putting out good data as opposed to bad data. Apple briefly surpasses Microsoft as the world's most valuable company after unveiling AI plans. So, if you didn't see, Apple did unveil their plans about AI and how they're going to integrate AI onto the iPhone and iOS overall. I'm not going to talk a lot about that today. I talked last week about Siri already, that they were going to update that, and Siri's going to be able to control more on the apps and do a little more on the phone itself. Obviously, when you have Siri, you can ask Siri a question. The way they're saying they're going to set it up is you can ask Siri a question. If Siri can't answer that question, it said, you want me to go, further and look into this. And that's when you're giving permission for OpenAI's ChatGPT to take over and find the information at that point. So there's been a lot of discussions back and forth exactly how this is going to work. It's I would say like September is when it's going to be released to people. So I'm going to wait until closer to really go into the details of that, because it's not available now. So uh, and it's pretty widely out there as far as all the information. But as it gets closer and as some of the betas launch, I'll talk about the details. But just them just them talking about the AI plans, obviously gave the big bump to them, because that is everyone was waiting to think, okay, saying, okay, what's Apple going to do here? What's Apple's response going to be? They were talking with OpenAI. They were talking with Google about using Gemini, settled on OpenAI for now. I'm sure, just like Microsoft, they're going to be building their own, but that's where we're at this point. I did see this article too while I was clicking through there. So NVIDIA could one day be an unprecedented 15% of the S&P 500. And that's a prediction by Evercore ISI. So obviously I talk a lot about NVIDIA. They are the chip maker behind all the chips that's running AI because of all the power and bandwidth that it takes. They are the leader in making the chips. I talked a lot about investing in them since I've started my segment here, and their stock has gone up and up and up. And we're predicting it could be 15% of the S&P 500, which would be pretty amazing if that came to fruition. But in looking at that, if you are still looking to invest, if you still like NVIDIA, sounds like it might not be a bad investment. Speaking of data, at some point, the data, the data is going to run out. So, I kind of titled this, "Do you want extra glue with your pizza?" Because the models are running out of high quality training data, which has historically been enhanced chatbot IQ, feeding them more data, getting smarter. However, the global reserve of public human text data isn't infinite. Infinite. And models like ChatGPT have clearly drained away a lot of the data, and new studies predict that AI companies will exhaust the available stock of public human text data between 2026 and 2032, which is a pretty wide margin. But there's a whole really good white paper. I do have this link if you want to check this out. And it's not, that's part of the problem with the large language models is they need data. And I talk a lot about OpenAI and how much, how many different partnerships they're trying to put in there to get more data. Reason for that is because they also have lawsuits going on with New York Times and other companies, but they're trying very hard to get as much data as fast as possible in there, because that is the key. Obviously, Google, with some of their AI, they're using the Google search results and some of the other things, much to the chagrin of most people. But they're using the data that way, the data that they've had in there already. So if you look at how these people are, Elon Musk with X that AI is using Twitter and going through those things. So they all have their data sources. OpenAI has been the one who's been the most proactive trying to go out and do that. But that is one of the fallbacks to the large language models, and two things: the future of AI, the large language model will become less and less important, and number two, we're not going to use it as a chat bot like we're doing now, and we're starting to see some of that with ChatGPT and the the interface of using images, using video, using other mediums, and just being able to talk to it to get the information. So, but we're seeing that shift in the large language models. But it'll be interesting to see, as far as the data, how quickly they can react and find new data to do that. So, speaking of Elon Musk and OpenAI, he has dropped his lawsuit against OpenAI and Sam Altman. This lawsuit was around, the Sam Altman abandoning what the mission of OpenAI was. So when before OpenAI was formed, Google was really the leader in AI because of some of the purchases they made and some of the people that they had. And people like Elon Musk and others saw that as an issue, invested in OpenAI, and that's why it's called OpenAI. It was going to be open source, available for everyone to use. It was a nonprofit. I've talked a lot about this in the past. Well, that kind of went away, and they are where they are now. And because of that, Elon Musk was suing them. There was different people saying, is he just doing that to kind of, try to slow them down? Is he doing that to try to, maybe get more information? Number of reasons why he might have been doing it. Taking on his face value, he's doing it because he feels that Sam Altman lied and they didn't follow the mission they were supposed to. Whatever it is, the lawsuit dropped. Now, it was also the about the same time that Elon Musk finally got paid his bonus from Tesla of 56 billion with a B dollars. That was a whole weird story. That was being held up in a Delaware court. A lot of times people would say, form your corporation in Delaware because of the favorable laws. And that came up, big questions around that. And that was being held up. But finally, the stockholders of Tesla agreed to paying Elon and moving Tesla out of California and basing it now in Texas. And I think that's part of his overall plan when you look at X and why we have to call Twitter X now. Although I still call it Twitter, he's combining all of his companies into one. The Tesla, there's a lot of AI in Tesla. We talk about AI and obviously ChatGPT comes up and these other things, but he has been one of the leaders in AI, not the large language models, but certainly in using AI, and self-driving cars are a huge example of that. And that was one of the things why some people didn't want him getting the money, why some people do want him getting $56 million, because he can use it to do more. His X.AI just got another infusion of about $6 billion in investment to continue to grow that out and continue to use that. So that platform is still there on X and actually is a good model. And especially if you use that platform and you want to, be able to easily disseminate data on there, you can do that. So a couple other stories. Brazil has hired OpenAI to cut cost of court battles. So they're going to use the platform to be able to get through thousands of court, the cases going through the courts and being able to look at those a lot quicker than just manually doing that. Microsoft killed off their GPT builder in Copilot. So if you're using Copilot Pro, you're able to actually build a GPT of your own and build it right within Copilot Pro. And just 3 months after it was available, they have killed it off. So not really sure why. I actually know a few people that were using it and were very happy with it. I know some of the things Microsoft has killed off, and especially in Copilot, because of issues of it not working well. And kind of going back to the drawing board. But in this case, it was working and people were using it, but they have decided to kill that off. So that is no longer available. And speaking of money and speaking of investment in all these companies, for venture capitalists, it's now 40% of venture capitalist money, VC money, is going into AI. So some sort of AI company. So of all the money going in there, 40% of it is going directly to AI companies. This reminds me very much of the dot-coms that became dot-bombs. I was involved in a lot of them. I worked at wingspanbank.com, which was the first internet bank. A big problem that we had was trying to get money into the bank because there was no ATMs at the time, and we didn't have Venmo or PayPal or any of those cool things. So that was one of our biggest issues of how to do that. I worked at cdnow.com, which was eventually bought by a young upstart named Jeffrey Bezos and his company Amazon. So there was a lot of dot-coms here in the Philly area that all became dot-bombs, or most of them became dot-bombs. And I think we're going to see, not to that level, but a lot with AI, because as Apple and these other companies start to integrate this into their iOS and their systems, we're going to start seeing things that people have been using. That's right, Maryland. They became bombs. We're going to see that with some of these companies, unfortunately, because they're going to have all these things built into it. Like a company like Grammarly has been talked about a lot. I've been using Grammarly for a while, really good company. But the problem is, once these companies like Apple build it into their iOS through using ChatGPT and other platforms, you won't have to use those anymore. So how do those companies react? How do they do something better to keep your attention and keep you as a client, and not get kicked to the curb because of these companies? So let me go into a couple of new um, systems out there that I saw, and then I'm going to jump over and talk about marketing to close out, and I'll also open to any questions. But there's always new systems coming out. I just saw a couple of these, and because I was talking about the Brazil using this, and this Harvey is a legal AI platform, and for lawyers who are using AI, about 97% use this above any other platform. So very interesting platform, and this kind of speaks to what I was just saying. So you have the large language models, and we talked a lot about OpenAI and their shortcomings in the law, but also the fact that it passed the LSATs and it has a lot of information. So it does have a lot of positives on there, but it's also a large language model. So it goes back to we're running out of data, and it's taking all this data in there, and that's why I said you want glue on your pizza, because that famously happened with Gemini, where people were saying, how can I get the cheese to stick to my pizza? It said put a quarter cup of glue on the pizza. The reason that happened was because, one, that's not a very Google term. So when people looked at that, and it went out and found the information, it found like an Onion article or some sort of comedy site, whatever it was, that had that information out there. Well, the large language model Gemini couldn't say this was true or not true. It just found the data and just put it in there. So being able to disseminate through the data, and going back to the election data and all the other things, that's why it's so important for you to do this. So that's why you're going to see companies like Harvey and others that will be able to survive, not only survive, but compete against the large language models, because that is taking this information and bringing it down to a smaller model. I talk all the time about, Dre was on before me. We got to make AI Dre, and just have all of Dre's information and knowledge into an AI platform, where I'm not going to go to ChatGPT, although there's a lot of great GPTs, there's a lot of great information. But if I want to build business, man, I know what Dre does. I know his success. I want to go to him, and boom, we could have a AI Dre system out there. So that's really that's how these other companies can compete against that. Get very niche, get very specific in what you want to do, and you can do it a lot better than the larger people, because they're trying to keep up with election data right now, let alone all the data over here. It takes so many resources, so many people to do that. That if you do something more specific like this, you have a much better chance for success. I started laughing because interviews is the next one. So this one is interview prep and copilot. So your AI wingman for nailing any job interview. This is the disturbing part I talked about in the news, that 26% of Gen Z are bringing their parents with them on job interviews. I don't even know how that works. Obviously, we're having job interviews on Zoom and those things, and I guess there's some people getting involved there, but like people actually physically coming to them on the job interviews, and it was to hear some of that might be happening is one thing. To hear 27% was mind blowing to me, and I think that is one of those things where obviously people need to be trained better, and need to be prepared better for an interviewer if you're going out and doing that. I know there's a lot of people on Breakfast with Champions who have talked about that. But this is a AI model that can help do the interview prep and help put you through those things, so you don't take your parents to your job interview, because I think that's going to be a negative when you go and do the job interview. And I keep trying to grab my mouse, which is not working. The last one is Notebook LM. This is a really good virtual research assistant. If you want to break down PDFs, if you want to, be able to do these things. Again, these are all these smaller models, and that's why I kind of pulled these out specific to being able to use, going directly to what you want to do, as opposed to the large language models and doing all those things. So this is part of Gemini 1.5, but it's down to just using it from a standpoint of You're extracting data from PDFs. You're doing research and doing those things. So it's taking that larger model and bringing it down to where it needs to be. So there were just some examples of those things I wanted to show as far as what's available out there on the smaller, and hopefully a lot of those companies can last and survive through that. So I'm going to go into like I said, this article from Andrew Chen that I was reading. I have some notes on here, some things I want to talk through, but I just want to see if anybody has any questions right now. I'll open it up real quick, and if not, I will jump over into this.
I was going to say, I wondered if they're bringing their parents, because I noticed this generation does not drive as quickly. Like, when I've heard so many people say their kids don't have license yet, and my niece is 16, going to be 17 in January, and she just got her permit. And then so many people like Uber, or and I just find it so mind blowing, because at like 15, I was like, okay, I got to get my permit. 16, I got to be out. I'm driving. And I just notice they just don't get their licenses quick. So who's going to take them but their parents? So did they mention anything about that, or is it like they need that blows my mind too, Matt?
Yeah, it's a good thought. Listen, my daughter is 22, and the other day I drove her and her friend to, now that she's been driving for years, but they're going to Philly for a concert, so I drove them. But here's the thing: my wife and I didn't go in the concert with them. We dropped them off and went to a restaurant, hung out there. They were done. So it's in this article they talked about bringing them into the interview.
Oh gosh,
yeah,
okay.
it's one thing to drive them and just, hey, I'll be in the parking lot. Good luck. Another thing,
Okay.
this was getting more involved in that. So, yeah. And listen, I think I also listen, if you look at COVID, and we look at these things that went on, and social media, and the lack of interaction and the lack of communication in this generation versus other generations, because of all those things, I think that plays a big part into it for sure. Trying to go out in person, have conversations, networking, those things. You're not seeing that a lot in Gen Z. So I think kind of teaching all those skills more, especially in schools, now that we have AI and we have these other platforms that can have all the information there. I talk all about, hey, use the platform to teach it, and then have people just get up and do presentations on what they're supposed to do instead of writing a paper, because they can use AI. And I don't care what people say, you can use AI and no one's going to know. There is no AI detector. You just have to know how to take the information and put it in your own words, and get rid of the general AI phrases out of it. And then no one will know if you wrote it or not. But in doing that, now if you get up and present, now you're getting out there more. You're putting yourself in front of crowds. You're talking about the information to explain that you have a knowledge of it. You have a little Q&A there. So there's so many ways around that, and using that within the school systems. I really hope they start to do that, because AI is not going away, and students and teachers will continue to use it and do that. So.
Well,
Hey,
I
Matt.
thought I was at I'm sorry, Trisha. um I I kind of like thought that they got caught with their parents like listening in on the interview. I didn't realize like they were being brought into the interview. I
Yeah.
was just like,
So yeah,
that's not
some that were on the Zoom. Yeah, exactly. They talked about that. Some were getting caught on Zoom, and others, yeah, we're going actually for physical interviews. We're going with them on the interview. Yes.
that is insane. And then the other part on Notebook LLM, one of the things that I personally like about it is that you can actually put a website. A lot of these tools
Yes.
you can't do that. So I appreciate that. Like Perplexity is very useful for research as well. But when you have a tool that can do, it can even get it from your Google Drive, which I also like. So that's also an opportunity. Like you can do your research while you're roaming the earth doing life, and then put it in a folder, and then you can get back on these tools and say, oh, this is my research, and then attach like whatever it is that you'd like to analyze, because you've already done the work, right? And that, like,
Yep.
I always like to break things down into smaller pieces. This tool helps you to do that. It helps you to pick up and tap into like what you want to do, because you've broken it down into a piece, and it can dive into that folder or attach the website along with the PDF, or even like I like that you can still copy the text in there too. So
Yes, no, agree. Yeah, you can pull stuff in from your Google Drive, use websites, PDFs, all that information. So it is a really good tool. Yeah, and it's just a good example of the smaller tools that do that. Hey, Trish.
Hey, so I believe also, like you're saying, that, you know, AI is not going anywhere. I also believe it stimulates our kids to really think because they have to get the AI out. So it stimulates their minds. It stimulates them to want to be able to get the AI out and change the verbiage. So
Sure.
they still have to do the work. They still have to do the work.
Yeah, absolutely. And as AI gets better, it can answer the questions better. But you have to know how to, it makes you prompt do the right prompts and prompt the AI and ask the questions the right way, and just from that helps you to understand how to research or how to ask questions correctly, or how to probe into figuring these things out versus just it's not just one question you're going to get everything you need. You really have to spend some time and do that, especially the way the larger language models work. So just in that and doing those things and asking those questions, there's so much value in that of understanding of it. So yeah, and like I said, there's a lot of pluses, and I understand why schools, especially so quickly, start pushing back. But again, you just have to, I use it all the time. Like when I was growing up, I said, "Well, you're not always going to have a calculator." Well, now we have a computer that's more powerful than we had when I was growing up in our pocket all the time. So forget calculator. And by the way, if you saw the new calculator that Apple put on the iPad, that was really cool. So if you haven't seen that yet, go to YouTube or something and look that up. You're going to be able to do formulas and write on there. So it's been so long. People have been begging them to do a calculator on the iPad, and they're finally like, okay, we did it. And you're like, okay, great. And they're like, no, 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 we did it. And they showed it, and it's yeah, it's a pretty amazing. So that's
I'm
another thing.
stoked for that update.
What's that?
I'm excited for that
Oh
update.
my gosh, yeah, yeah,
You could do it within a document, and what I love is that you can actually go like you can actually put calculus in there and it'll give you the damn like
yep,
answer, which is hilarious. I was
yep.
like, oh my lord. So yeah, people are gonna have a field day with that.
Yes, and
And I
that's
truthfully, I
good.
apologize.
No, good.
I believe that sometimes the teachers don't want to learn it. So they don't, they didn't want to learn the new math back
Sure.
in the day.
Yeah,
They don't want to learn the AI, so they don't want to be able to instruct it to the kids.
That's because they got core math. Just I'm gonna leave that there.
we'll just drop that. We'll put a pin in that there. No, it's a good point. But there are other teachers that are not only learning it, they have embraced it and they're using it in their classroom and putting their lectures together and putting their lessons together. So they're using it just the same. And they should. But again, you just have to go in. Like I was talking, there's 20%, 27% election data was incorrect. So that's the other part of it, where you can't just put it out there and then say. You still have to do research to make sure that the things that's cited in there and some of the information data is going to give you is correct. It just gives you a really good foundation to work off of and kind of build towards there. So yeah, it's not, like I said, it's not going anywhere. They got to use it and do that. So again, I'm coming up on the end of my time. Next week I will. You know what? Next week I'm probably going to start with this how AI will reinvent marketing by Andrew Chen, and then go into other stuff, because I had this last week too, and I ran out of time because of some of the things I went through and the discussion. So, but it is 9:00, so I'm going to hand this over to my good friend Dora Maria, who was ready to jump in because of all my technical issues, but I was able to make it through good
If you
enough.
ever need more time, man, just in the future, like no, you
I
can definitely
appreciate it.
do a tag team because we most times I am talking about applying how
Right.
to use the actual AI tools, because I think people get lost in the sauce, right? They say, "Oh, this nice little fancy tool," and then they don't
Yep.
use it because they're like, how do I even start?" And so I like to work on the application, right? Jumping right in. So,
Yep.
we can tag team. So just let me
Absolutely.
know.
It is
All about
it's
that
a
stuff.
nice 1-2 punch. So
Yep.
I appreciate all that you do. So I will hand
Oh
it off to
man.
you, my friend.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And folks, like I said, this is a no-brainer for me. Like I'm gonna go ahead and put Matt's link in the chat because